Hi everyone, can you all hear me? Can you drop a message in the chat if I sound all right? Perfect. Thank you, Doug and Sarah. So you'll see I'm on Lindisfarne right now. So we've got two of us are both on site right now. So hopefully our signal's good enough. So welcome to a very special virtual tour for a very special site. We'll be exploring Caerfai Camp in Pembrokeshire, where the past few weeks the team have been digging a prehistoric promontory fort. So this fort is at risk from coastal erosion, but you can see if you look at Kim's screen right now, it's got some amazing views and some great archaeology. So it's really the perfect place for any archaeology fan or archaeologist. And honestly, I'm so excited for you all to see it. I got a bit of a glimpse the other day and it really is amazing. You're going to love it. For those of you who haven't met me before, I'm Ginny from Dig Ventures. And like I said, I'm not in my usual spot right now. I am on Lindisfarne for our other dig. So we've got two digs running at the same time. And I'm joined by Kim, my colleague, who will be leading Team Caerfai, and she's come to tell you all about it. So today she'll be telling us more about this site. We'll be having a look at what the archaeologists are actually getting up to right now. And we'll have a chance at the end for some questions. So before we get started with the tour, I'll just share my screen and we'll go over a little bit of housekeeping. So you should be able to see that now. Just a few things. So don't be afraid to use the chat. You all were while we were counting down. That was great. So we love hearing from you. If you have any comments that you want to say, any bits you want to see again, just let us know in the chat and we can show you an extra close-up shot. But do keep it friendly. I've never had to boot anyone out. I say it every time, and I always say this every time as well. But do remember that we're all here. It's all being recorded. We're all here to see some archaeology. So do be nice to each other and to us as well. Feel free to ask questions. There should be a Q&A feature in the bottom of your screen. If you wiggle your mouse, that should pop up. So at the end, we'll leave a little bit of time for questions. So anything you're wondering about the site or the archaeology or anything like that, just drop that in there and I'll go through them for you. And of course, please be patient. Like I said, we're on site right now, so there might be some Wi-Fi issues or some tech issues. Zoom is great, but it's not always perfect. So if that does happen, give us a couple of minutes. We'll do our best to fix it as quickly as possible so we can get back into the good stuff. So without further ado, that's enough from me for now. What I'm going to do is pass over to the lovely Kimberly, who's going to start showing us around site. Oh, you're muted, Kim. There we go.
No, must have been 100 Zooms over the past year and a half of lockdown, and that didn't start.
To the best of us.
Well, welcome everybody to Caerfai Promontory Fort. We are in Pembrokeshire in Wales on the St David's coast. And we're digging here as part of the Cherish project because the fort is disappearing into the sea as a direct result of climate change. So coastal erosion is eating away at the fort. There's a tunnel underneath and a cave, and that's a significant point of weakness to where the fort is situated. So give it 50 years and it won't be there anymore. So we're here as kind of rescue archaeology, but also to find out what's here. So Caerfai is a scheduled monument. They are aware that there is a fort here. We've got a series of 4 defensive ramparts just behind me, which I'll take you through shortly. But they don't know exactly what's here. So that's why we've put some trenches in to understand, is it prehistoric? Is it Iron Age, like the other 12 forts all the way along the coastline? And the other 55 forts within Pembrokeshire alone. Were they living here? Was it defensive? Was it for industrial purposes, such as smelting, that kind of thing? Can we work out where they would have accessed the site from? As you'll see in a minute, it's on quite a precarious position, up on a narrow isthmus that's disappearing into the sea. So was it like this 2,500 years ago? That's what we're hopefully going to find out. So we've been here since the 2nd of September. We've had upwards of 15 volunteers every day, local volunteers, and that's been fantastic. Volunteers from St David's, up and down the coast of Pembrokeshire, people coming from Cardiff, so lots of Welsh volunteers joining in. So it's been fantastic to bring the heritage to them, to understand their local heritage in potential ancestors. We've also had lots of returning Dig Ventures people, so that's been lovely to get them onto another site in a different setting. So I think that's it for now. So I'll take you on a walk through a site. We've got 2 trenches to look at. We've got some ramparts to look at. We've got some finds as well. We'll get inside the trench and have a good look at the action. So let's get started. I will turn you round. Okay. So where I am right now it's an incredible spot. I'm not going to lie. Today, the weather is superb for a site tour. So just behind me, you can see this weird little hillock here. And that is the ditch in between a rampart here and another rampart here that run for at least 60 metres all the way down to the other side of the scheduled monument. So we've got this really big earthen banks made of compacted sediment, lots of stones and boulders. There seem to be different ages of construction. So I'll explain why we've come to that conclusion in a second. But I mean, it's pretty cinematic. You would have definitely known that there was a fort here or at least some kind of occupation. So let's take it over a rampart and into sight.
You've really got the sun today, haven't you, Kim?
Oh, it is perfect. We've got a little bit of wind being stuck out to the sea, but hopefully it's not too bad.
No, you sound perfect. Bit of wind's nice when you're digging as well, isn't it? Keeps you
cool. So we're just on top of a rampart here. If you can see, that's this lump here. We've got a dip in between, so that's a ditch. And then they come along. They look quite imposing. Is the drop there into the sea. So one of the reasons we are here excavating is because of this view. So this undercut section here is where the site is disappearing as a direct result of coastal erosion. So I won't get too close to the edge, don't worry. I'm very clumsy, so I'm going to keep a safe distance. But that's our dig site there. So that is Caerfai or Penpladii Hill Fort, Promontory Fort. Similar to a hill fort, except we're not on a hill, we're on a little spit out into the sea. So we've put our trench there where historical maps and geophysical results have suggested that we've got archaeological remains and that that's where a camp is. But also we've done some test pits on this headland here. And there are also stone remains there as well. So it's quite likely that the settlement or the buildings continue out onto that headland. And it's quite likely that we're missing quite a lot of archaeological remains to this chasm that's opened up over the years. So we'll be taking you down there in a second, but I'm going to take you on a walk along this little rampart. The LiDAR has been done, but it doesn't show anything from the surface really. It obviously shows the ramparts and areas of erosion, but there's nothing obviously hill forty about where we've put the trench. So we'll walk along here. It'll just take me a few minutes to get down because I've come down the wrong rampart.
It's quite I feel like you have to be quite fit to be on this side, don't you? You're up and down hills quite a lot.
Yes, and not too clumsy either. So I'll just show you the trench just from above. And then we'll go down the rampart first without falling.
Definitely getting your steps in today.
Definitely. Right, so let's take this view. So I'll show you up the top first and then we'll go down into the ramparts and you'll just get a feeling of how tall they are, how imposing they would have been without all of this bracken.
It is beautiful. We had a message in the chat saying it's very beautiful, very impressive. It is, isn't it?
It's incredible, especially when it's sunshiny. So here is trench 2. So we put this trench in to understand terrestrial erosion. So the top section there, we put that in to understand how the bracken is affecting the ramparts, animal burrows, that kind of thing. And we discovered that it really is badly damaged. It's very unstable. It's full of holes, burrows, that kind of thing. Not many finds. So unfortunately, the vegetation has done a number on the ramparts. However, this rampart that I'm stood on is very, very well constructed. It's got a lot of stones, compacted stones. It's really, really well bedded in. So we think that could have been a different phase of construction, could have been an earlier phase. They really took their time to construct it, build this really impressive feature. And then they've come along later, maybe generations later, and gone, okay, we can do that. Let's just put a load of boulders and stone up and hope for the best. So it's a little bit more damaged. So I'm just going to gracefully come down to speak to Dan. Hi, Dan. So Dan works for the Cherish Project and the Royal Commission of Monuments in Wales. He's come along to join us and to dig this rather impressive trench. So have you got any opinions, Dan? Because you've come across something exciting in the past 2 days, haven't you?
Yeah, so as Kim was just saying there, there's multiple phases at play really, and especially in this bank, you can clearly see. So you've got the original, or possibly the original hard bank, sort of hard packed clay with large sort of differing size types of rubble, and then you can see there's a bit of a space. Then you've got this wall, or it could be possible that the wall or the face is more likely to be facing packed up against a later rampart. And then all in the bottom here, you can see this is all likely to be tumble from the initial rampart. It would have been a lot higher. So yeah, so a lot of stone, and that would have been a beautiful rampart faced with stone at some point.
Absolutely. So by facing, do we mean that those stones will have been laid over the rampart? So it would have been like a silvery, stony feature?
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
Maybe at the bottom. I mean, you can kind of get a sense from the stonework that's still in place there that it kind of looks relatively pitched, doesn't it? Sort of as going back rather than straight, like a sort of a vertical wall.
Yeah.
And the stuff that is sort of built into this yellowy hard packed clay looks like it's been specifically put against kind of the silting up of the original rampart to kind of reinstate it. It's something quite impressive, really.
Incredible.
So yeah, really still a lot of questions.
Yes,
but we're getting there.
Yeah, not quite at the bottom yet, are we, of this ditch?
I mean, I think if you look at this kind of the angle of the original rampart, the original ditch would have probably come off the bottom of that. So underneath all of this would have been probably a much deeper ditch.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I mean, there's still a way to go down probably. But there's all sorts of nice stuff up here as well.
And this is the rampart that seems to have had less care and attention. So whereas maybe they started off with better intentions down at the bottom.
It's definitely a lot more rudimentarily made, I think. It's more earth with just packed full of more rubbly stone rather than a formal kind of construction like the wall you can see there.
Right.
And any of these stones here are likely to be tumbling out of the face of that, I think.
Oh, fantastic.
Story of many ramparts.
Lovely. Well, hopefully we'll get some more answers in post-processing, and if not, maybe next year.
Hopefully.
Lovely, thank you. I'm going to head over to Trench 1. We've just got Jodie. Hello. Loitering with intent. Oh, crikey. Well, we'd best not get... I don't want to step on your clean section. Hang on. Thank you very much. Right then, guys. We will take you down to Trench 1. So as we walk through the ramparts, you can see they're really quite sheltered, quite imposing. And if Dan's theory is correct and they were lined with facing stones, how impressive would that have looked for 60-metre long ramparts covered with stones? Would have looked a bit like dragon scales, really. So I'm going to take you up and over gracefully.
I think you're doing a cracking job of climbing around the site, Kim.
You hear that now, and then I'll fall slowly, and that will be the... Oh. So here we are. So we're around the other side of Caerfai Bay, the name of which eludes me. But this is our site. So this is our trench. So it's a strange U shape because on the geophysical survey data undertaken by Sumo in 2019 or 2018, they found some really strong geophysical anomalies in this area here and in the central section. They were very suggestive of large remains with a strong magnetic resonance, and as well as an area of thermoremnant heating. So that's when an area has been affected by fire or a kiln or burning, that kind of thing. So this is why we've positioned it here, to try and catch those anomalies. So I'll take you in to try and explain what we've found out, or the current theories we're working on. So we've got lots of visitors on site today. Right. So when we first came down onto site, we immediately, I don't know if you can see in the section side, so the section side is the wall of the trench. We came immediately down onto loads and loads of stones, very loose, rubbly. They shouldn't really be here. So whoever put them there had quarried them from the cliffs and brought them up. So we had really, really big pile of rubbly spread there and there as well. So the whole of this end of the trench was just filled with rubble. We're not really sure why. Doesn't seem to be capping anything or covering anything. One theory from Lou at Cherish is that this could have been a lower terraced rampart. So you see where the rampart comes down in front of us here and cuts down. Maybe this was a lower rampart. Maybe it was levelled over time. It would have been a little hillock. It certainly looks like the same kind of stone that the rampart to the south was constructed with. So as we excavated, we came down onto this, which sort of looks like a stone surface, maybe a kind of road surface or floor. It is quite uneven, but that could have been from settlement over time. You know, with the weight of the rocks and stuff, they've just become jumbled up a bit. But that's the current theory we're thinking. Seems to lead towards the ramparts. So it could have been some kind of stone avenue, or this could be a feature that's been pushed over. Maybe it's not, it's a false bottom. It's not actually a surface, it's something that's been pushed over. As we come around, we had this really big stony mound. I don't know if you can see it. It's still under the grass, the bit we didn't excavate. And again, it's all a bit strange. We've excavated all of the rubbly stones off of the top of it. We've put a section through, that's this hole running through here, to try and understand. And again, the boulders carry on into that way. They come to an end here. They come to an end there. So we're stood on top of some kind of stony, bouldery structure. Is this a levelling kind of feature? Would there have been something built on top of this? Is this collapsing from some kind of building? Not really sure, but we found lots of goodies as we were excavating here. So lots of these. So I don't know if you've been reading the blogs, but we found lots and lots of slingshots. So they fit lovely in the palm of the hand. They've been brought up from the beach deliberately, and we found loads and loads and loads of those in this top layer. So we know that prehistoric people use slingshots as a method of defense when they're up high. You know, a slingshot can travel 25 meters a second. It can fracture a skull at 60 meters. So we know that they were either worried or they were defending themselves. So we know that the fact that we found loads of these slingshots in amongst the deposit, it kind of gives us a bit of an idea of when it was all constructed. So we came down here onto this kind of occupational layer, and we've got Jodie and Steph here from Dig Ventures. Would anyone like to explain what's going on, what all the charcoal's about? You know, what's with the floor that looks like a floor? You know,
so
what's caring?
We just cleaned it up. It was really good timing. We have everybody out of the trench so that we can do photographs. Actually, we have what we think is a divisional kind of. We're going to call it a wall for ease of description. A divisional wall here that separates what appears to be an internal surface on this side, which is slightly higher ground level, with this external surface, although we do now start to see it's much more uneven once we get down to the final level, but we do seem to have a small pit, rubble-filled pit or post hole there coming up out of the surface. And yeah, on the other side of the wall, this interior surface is kind of has been packed chock full with dark burn material, little bone fragments of carbonized cremated bone. We believe it's animal bone that has probably not been cremated in the sense of a depositional, like ritualistic deposit, but as in it's probably just been exposed to heat for a prolonged period of time with heavy use of burning in this area. We've got a nice slag surface over there that is very flat and regular, and it can come right down onto a slumping area over here, which appears to possibly be overlying and collapsing into another pit feature. So we have some optimistic and hopeful thoughts towards maybe that being a hearth maybe underneath there. We're just not sure. Yeah, so then we've got a nice post feature coming up over here, and another couple of small features that we are hoping to explore later today. So yeah.
Fantastic. So we've had some key finds from here, haven't we? Such as we've had some slag, which is that minerals leaching out from the smelting process?
Yeah, so it's the byproduct. It's the kind of waste material that is left behind once you extract the heavy metals out of the material, the ore. And,
fantastic.
that is something that's quite significant for this area. So we haven't had lots of evidence of that in many of the promontory forts in the surrounding areas, so that's very positive. We also found just outside near the pit that has been excavated, post hole possible is what we were thinking, and maybe a structural post hole over there, filled with all of the stone that you see on the side of the trench was all came out of this tiny, relatively small area, and right next to it on this compact surface we found a bit of pottery,
and that's incredibly rare, isn't it? Iron Age pottery.
I'm very excited. I think is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, 3 pieces as well.
Right.
It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's very good. So, and then also a lovely little worked scraper from flint, and it was just chucked to bits when we found all of that.
Perfect.
So we do have a bit of dating coming around this area, so we do think that this is going to be probably the area we want to come back to if we can. Yeah.
Amazing. So I see patterns in things. So I, humor me, see what you think. I wonder if we're seeing some kind of alignment of post holes. Let me point on the camera. So possible post hole there, possible post hole over there.
Yeah.
The one that's been excavated, a post hole there, possible another one in the section. So do you think there would have been an upstanding structure maybe?
I hope so. I think that is what we are trying to, to establish if there's enough evidence to make these kinds of suggestions. But we certainly have a heavily clustered zone of activity. And I think that some of the smaller ones maybe lesser support structures for the roof.
Amazing.
And thatch roofs, we tend to have very large supporting posts in the center if there's a open fire or hearth, which is why we're so optimistic about possibly that central alignment there being something associated with the center of the structure.
Amazing.
But I could definitely see this being a covered space that with these post holes have something to do with a structure of some sort.
That is so cool. Amazing. And what are these little white discs that are all the way around the trench as well?
Those are photogrammetry tags. We are in the process of trying to photograph so that we can create a 3D model of the site so that we have everything pinpoint accurate. We've already GPSed everything in, and we're going to be plopping that down onto a real live location map in QGIS. And that way we would have a 3-dimensional real-time space with all the different dimensions. You can manipulate it. Hopefully we'll have that at some point.
Amazing.
People, yeah.
And so by putting all of that into GIS and getting a kind of plan, we might be able to try and hazard a guess at, when you see things from an aerial point of view, you can kind of see the patterns better, can't you? So we might get an idea of if it's a roundhouse, some kind of scale, if the features come back round. But because we're just taking a snapshot through the trench, it's hard to hazard a guess fully at what's going on, isn't it?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So we will take that back and we'll use that to try to map out and project where we think the remainder of the structure might be and where we would be best suited to do future works should we be able to come back in another year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Steph. Well, I'm going to take our viewers up close and personal with some of the features in the trench. We're still staying boots out, aren't we, because of the photographs?
Right.
Yeah.
We're about to do the photo poll, so we're going to get our area more kind of overhead shots.
Oh, amazing.
Go wander through.
Well, we'd love to get that. I'm sure people would love to see some photogrammetry in action. So there's Lou from the Cherish Project with her giant pole. It's on our Christmas wish list, just saying. Wicked. So we'll look around some of the finds. Do tell me if I get in the way. So if we look here, can you see a dark pit in and around these stones here? Let's try and point it out. So it sort of comes in and around there.
Oh yeah, that's really clear.
It is. So there's lots of charcoal there. There was lots of slag. We think that the stones in the middle have fallen in. We don't think that's a true feature. We think it's probably some kind of collapse into the pit. Could be a pit, could be where we might have our kiln or hearth, because it's quite big, quite significant. The same with this stone wall. So we've got the large boulders on the top, but there's smaller packing stones underneath, which seems strange. So could it be that the wall is a later feature put on top of a kind of rubbly layer? Or are we seeing collapse that just seems to be in a straight line? Just seems a little bit odd. Let's go here to the floor. This is my favourite part of
It's lovely and flat, this bit, that you can really see that feature.
Yeah, paving. My favourite stones are next to that upright stone there. They're just perfectly tucked in and packed in, and it's just this lovely flat surface. The little areas that are missing, so these dark areas, were deposits of charcoal, cremated bone, little rubbly bits and pieces. They don't appear to have been pits as per se, but more of built up deposits. So it could be that over time, you know, ash and stuff's just got trampled into the surface, or as we excavate further, maybe they'll turn out to be proper pit features. Here's one of the post holes here. So the post holes would have, they would have been dug down and stones would have been packed into the bottom. So there's just one in the centre just there. So stones would have been packed into the bottom of the pit and the wooden upright would have been put on top of it. And the stones would have protected the bottom of the wooden post and kept it safe from getting wet and rotten and so on. And then they would have packed more stones in around it to keep it nice and upright. So that's how we know when we get a little cluster, a circular cluster of stones, that's when we think, hang on, this is a little bit strange. Looks like a post hole. So you can really, I mean, I've got quite an imagination, but I can imagine, you know, a little wooden upright post around this lovely floor surface. Would have looked incredible.
So do you think that floor surface might be, it has a relationship with those post holes then, that they're connected in some way?
We think so. They seem to be within the same context, which is the archaeological layer. So it's the same kind of charcoaly, rubbly, slaggy kind of deposit over the top of the natural, which is this reddy, orangey, crumbly layer. But again, we're not sure if that is the natural sort of the base deposit where the archaeology will stop, because there's a lot of stones set into it. So we think it could be a false natural. So again, if we come back next year, we'll need to dig down into that to understand if we have hit the bottom, or if actually that's just some kind of outdoor leveling layer and there's more remains underneath. But we definitely think that the post holes are related to this floor surface, and all of the charcoal and slag remains are all sort of related. We think this could be an entranceway maybe. Steph thinks it might continue further out towards the sea, as the pottery and the scraper were found here, almost like they dropped them stepping into the entranceway. But we'll just take you further down the other end of the trench. So these are all of our volunteers today having a little break. Hi, volunteers. Yay. You are live on Zoom. Hi. This project wouldn't have happened without, you know, all of the volunteers and venturers coming along every day. We are just, you know, like the puppet masters in a way, helping and encouraging everyone along. But, you know, these trenches have been dug by regular people, regular volunteers. And yeah, we're very, very lucky and blessed. So in this end of the trench, it's just a rubbly deposit. Nothing really obvious, just looks like something that's tumbled down, fallen down. There's no obvious patterning, no obvious foundation remains. A bit uninspiring, but you know, the size of the boulders there, we know that something's going on. We know that there's something nearby. We just haven't quite caught it with our trench. So that is it for trench 1. We've got Steph and Lou with the photogrammetry pole whizzing round. So should we open up to some questions? Does anyone have any questions to ask?
Yeah, there's been a couple have been in the chat, but I think I'm going to start off with one question. So there's photogrammetry models. So for anyone who doesn't know, photogrammetry is a way that you can build these 3D models, can't you, of trenches or features. Yeah. So will this be available for people to see online, to have a look at themselves and explore the trench?
It certainly will be. So for those who don't know, we've created a website with a blog on it. We've put key finds on there every day, and we've already got a 3D model taken by Cherish of the fort. So you can have a really good look at the undercut cave and so on. But once we've built the 3D model of the trench and the features, it will be available. Let me turn my screen around. On this lovely website here, https:/digventures.com/Caerfai Promontory Fort. We'll put that in the chat for you. And you'll be able to have a good look at everything, 3D models, photographs, and you can always share your interpretations if you know a bit more about the site and so on. We welcome all kinds of opinions and thoughts. But yeah, that'll be free to know that.
That'd be great, thank you. So some of the questions from the chat, Tom was wondering, do we have any idea how long this site was occupied for?
Well, the pottery we have is typical of early Iron Age, so it's got a lot of quartzy inclusions in it. We've not got any Roman remains, so we know that they didn't bother with this site. As we know, the Romans were particularly messy. They left a lot of rubbish behind. They like to let people know that this was theirs. So it could have been that this site was occupied a little bit longer by local tribes or the Iron Age people. It's possible that the site could date to earlier than Iron Age, particularly as we're finding charcoal and slag beneath where we found the pottery and the flint. It might be that it's a deep deposit, but it might be that we've got remains continuing further down. So next year we'll be able to clarify a bit more, but the pottery has really helped us to get a solid date on the site, and hopefully we'll get some more evidence next year.
Awesome, that fits in with George's question as well, which was about the Iron Age pottery and how that might link to the occupation.
Fantastic.
So good question. We've got some good questions coming in. Thank you for these. So David has asked, from the size of the features and the features on site, can you take a guess at what the community, how big that would have been? Would it have been more like in the tens or in the hundreds? What kind of size are we looking at here?
Well, typical Iron Age settlements wouldn't have been, from what I've been told, wouldn't have been larger than 100. They would have been quite small. So because this is one of 12 settlements along the coastline, they wouldn't have need to pack loads of people in here. But we do know that this isn't a settlement zone that we found here. This is a zone of industrial working. So this is like their workshops in a way. We've not found evidence for what they were eating. We've not found evidence for lots of little huts and so on. So we think that could be on the headland there, or it could be in the fields behind us. The geophysics did suggest some kind of roundhouses and so on. But it typically less than 100. This could have just been a workshop and people might not have settled here at all. It's lots of questions at the moment. And not many answers. It's been pretty sterile finds wise. We've just had mainly masonry, so yeah.
Maybe
Sorry.
next year. Oh, I've just got a big plane going past, so you can hear all that in the background. Sorry about that. It's very busy on Linda's farm today. The sun's out and the tide's open. So, Tom again is asking, do we have any idea how much of the site has been lost to the sea?
Well, somebody that came by the other day, they said that their dad used to walk through the cave underneath the fort in the 20s. And that's collapsed in, and somebody who used to fish here in the 40s said that where he used to stand over here has disappeared, and another man said that in April where he used to fish, that's also disappeared.
So it's disappearing quite rapidly then, so I imagine there's probably a lot been lost over
and where the orange fence is, that's where the cliff's undercut to. So it is disappearing quite rapidly. I won't go too close to the edge.
Please don't fall off onto you.
Oh, don't want everyone's stomachs to go, but it is disappearing. We've got a definite big void underneath us and underneath the trench. So yeah, we don't want to dig too deep.
Yeah. Don't destroy anymore. Don't cause any cave-ins or anything like that. Yeah.
Nobody dig deeper than a meter, I think.
So talking about this is quite this kind of blends well this next question from George. He's asked, so we talked about coming back next year, so if that were the case, what kind of work would be done to preserve the site in between digging seasons, both the trench and I suppose minimizing the loss, I guess?
Absolutely. So the Royal Commission have already been along with their drone and recorded what they can. We've digitally recorded as much of it as possible. So we'll lay some plastic sheeting down over the stone remains so that if we come back next year, they'll be easy to find. But it really is a case of rescuing and understanding as much as we can this year and hoping that it'll be okay next year and the year after. And it is going to disappear eventually. So we'll just understand as much as possible. There's only so much we can dig. We can't take the whole site away. They think many, many more forts have disappeared along the coast. So it is inevitable, but as long as we understand it, we can't really stop coastal erosion. We can't stop climate change. So it will disappear, but it's just trying to record it as best we can so it can live on digitally, really.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking that I imagine there's been quite a few that have been lost.
Definitely, yeah.
It is a shame for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So Laura asked about the fortification. You mentioned the idea of it being sort of a workshop.
Yeah.
It's very well fortified for a workshop. So could it be a place of refuge for the rest of the settlement if someone had attacked potentially?
Absolutely. So there's two fields of thought at the moment, two schools of thought. There's a school that think that this is a place to come and work by the sea, a community zone, and that the ramparts are just some kind of community building effort. There's another side that think it's defensive, so they can retreat behind the ramparts. It's really hard to attack them from the sea, but it's easy to defend yourself from up here. So if it is defensive and this was their workshop, it's quite possible we've got a fort or more buildings over there on the promontory and headland that will give us more clues about how they were living and what they were doing here. But certainly the ramparts would have been an area of refuge, and you could hide up here and throw your slingshots down onto people and crack some skulls, defend yourself.
Yeah.
But the prehistoric people didn't write things down. They didn't give us any clues. So we've just got to try and compare and contrast sites, and just say, oh, they did this at this site, maybe they did it here, and try and draw some comparisons, really.
Yeah, a bit of detective work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I do wonder, this is a me question, this isn't from the chat, but it makes me think, you don't think this would have been a year-round site, I imagine, because I suppose in the winter months it'd be quite harsh up here. Would this have been sort of a seasonally occupied, or maybe if there were times of high tension and they felt they needed a bit more refuge, that sort of thing?
I think 2,500 years ago, the coastline would have been different. So the islands,
very true, yeah,
they would have been attached. So we would have had maybe half a mile more of coastline. This might not have been as promontory as we think it was. But certainly in winter it would have been battered. So we think that maybe the settlement is behind us, in the fields behind us, and this was just for working and keeping a watch out, really. I don't think they would have lived right out on the sea, very exposed, very open to being hit by storms and so on.
Yeah. So this is a good question here. So I think it was Doug. Yeah, Doug. So Doug mentioned, obviously, as I mentioned before, I'm currently sat on Lindisfarne. So clearly we have two digs that are happening at once.
Yeah.
We were sort of restricted on Caerfai this season by the seabird nesting season. He asked if you can elaborate on that. How does that affect our ability to investigate the site?
So we just had a small window when we could come on to not disturb the birds. So there's a natural harbour just down there, the other side. There's lots of nesting choughs, nesting gulls, and there's puffins on the islands opposite on Ramsey Island. So we had to avoid those because it's a national park. It is monitored by the National Trust and the Pembrokeshire National Park. So, conscientious of the birds and of the nature. So we had a 3-week window when we came. So it'd probably be the same again next year. We'll just have to be to the seabird nesting, and when we're good to go, we'll come back and not be so disruptive, really.
Yeah, so there you go. Nature can dictate archaeology as well. It's not just money and landowner permissions. It's also seabirds.
Apparently, September is the best month for weather, so we're more than delighted with the seabirds. They can keep on doing their thing.
Works for us. So we have another question. If you had another 2 weeks, what targets might you go for? So what might be your plan of action? I suppose for next year as well, our plan of action.
Well, this is it. So I'd definitely like to understand the stone mound in the corner of the trench. I'd like to find that half, because then we'll know, was it for cooking? Was it for smelting? Have we got some more ironwork? We can get a better idea of the scale. But also over on the headland, we dug 2 little test pits just to ground truth the geophysics and to understand the sedimentary buildup or the stratigraphy of the site. And there's a stone wall, a nice strong stone wall there. So we know that there's remains on the headland. So I'd love I'll redo the geophysics. I'd like to do it with ground penetrating radar, because that picks up walls really well, and voids, how close that void is, the cave. But yeah, I'd love to investigate the headland and just see, were they living there, or was it more for a workshop? Was it more slingshots? Were they defending themselves there? Just get a better idea of what they were doing here at Caerfai.
Yeah, that leads quite well into another question as well. So Gaynor asked, if it was a workshop, you mentioned a few ideas that you had there. What sort of things were they doing? So you mentioned things like cooking and smelting. Is that the sort of thing that we'd be looking at?
Yeah, so we found some copper slag, which would have been a direct use for creating bronze. So whether they're creating bronze weapons or bronze jewellery. We've also got iron slag, so we know they were working iron on site as well, and quite big, significant lumps, lots and lots of charcoal flecks. So it might have just been a little workshop, the family workshop or the tribe workshop, where they sat and whittled away the days, making jewellery to sell on or to trade, or making weapons and status things. But until we find that half, it'll be difficult, We don't have any shells. On some of the other parts, we've got evidence for shells, so we know that they were eating shellfish and so on, but we've not come across any rubbish pits, any evidence that people were living here, just using the site for industrial things. So I'd really love to find that settlement and maybe get some more answers about what's going on.
Yeah, it's quite unusual not to have rubbish pits, I suppose, isn't it?
This is it. We just missed them, but it is an evaluative trench. It is shaped and little, so plenty more questions and theories for next year.
Perfect. Yeah, and of course you mentioned about the metalworking. So in prehistory, there were things like weaponry wasn't necessarily for warfare, was it? There was also a lot of status tied into that. So it could be a very important site in that sense, couldn't it?
Absolutely, this is it. So, we think they were defending themselves, but there's a school of thought that think that the Iron Age were more peaceful. There's not many of them around the UK. The Romans didn't penetrate as far as Caerfai. They are in Pembrokeshire, but they don't seem to have been bothered here. So whether they were defending themselves or whether they were just, you know, making items for the families and for generations to hand down, like you say, status weapons just to show off with. Yeah, lots of questions.
Yeah, definitely. So Richard asked, I can actually answer this one for you. So Richard asked, is this our first dig of the year? No, it's not actually. We've had a couple of digs so far. So we started off very early this year because we're doing a bit of a COVID catch up with our dig at Bishop Midland up near DVHQ up in County Durham. And then this summer we've had Elmswell, haven't we, Kim? And we've had here at Caerfai, and we've also been on Lindisfarne as well. So we've been calling this Silly September because there's just so much going on. So you can see everything we've been up to. If you look at our socials and our website, you'll see that there's been a lot. It's been very busy, but some amazing archaeology found this year. So we're very happy with it, aren't we, Kim?
Absolutely. It seemed a shame not to go for it and to run them both at the same time, and we've done really well. The venturers have really steered the ship here, and we couldn't have done it without them.
Definitely. Very, very important, our venturers and our subscribers as well. David asked, when are we going to stop this year? So we do have a fixed date that we'll stop, don't we? We have a free week we were digging for. So when is your last day on site, Kim?
So unfortunately our last day is today. So we've just done the photogrammetry of the trench. This is how we'll leave it. We might investigate a few of the post holes, but this is as far as we're going to go. And then tomorrow we're back filling all of this rubble and soil. So if anyone lives near Caerfai or St David, you're more than welcome to come down. There will be cake, there will be biscuits. Bring a shovel for the backfilling tomorrow.
Please come help. I mean, I would if I was nearby. I'm very jealous. Look at the views, the sea.
Yeah, we'll go for a swim afterwards. It's going to be dreamy.
I'm jealous, and I'm on Lindisfarne. I mean,
we'll steal you next year, Jenny. You can come to Caerfai.
No, you'll pinch me. I'll come. I'll be doing the socials over here instead. I'll maybe each year I'll hop back and forth. That's how I'll do it. So Richard asked, is there a history of mineral deposits in the area? Is it quite a rich landscape?
Yeah, there's so some of the locals have told us there's a coal seam just across the bay. There's a natural copper seam as well. So all of the stone that they've used is all the local green and red sandstony, slaty type shale type sedimentary rock. So we know that they were mining locally. They were possibly trading locally, bringing things in, but there's nothing that seems out of place that's been brought in from miles away. Every stone that we've looked at has been from the local deposits and local cliffs, so nothing, indicating bringing minerals in and so on. They were very self-sufficient, I think.
It's prime real estate, sounds like prime prehistoric real estate if you've got all that nearby.
What about, really?
Yeah. Well, I think that was our last question. So what I'll do, I've just popped that website link in the chat for you all if you want to go and have a look at some of the blogs and things that Kim's been writing. Let's have one last look at the landscape before I take over and share my screen. Stunning, isn't it? So sunny today. Amazing. We're only just getting the sun over here, so I'm very jealous.
Oh yes, roll on 4:30 and swimming in the sea. That's all we can.
Lovely. So I'm stealing the screen now. Let me share my screen one more time. So thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Kim, for giving us a really amazing tour. We saw so much, we learned so much. Like, I'm just, amazing. Honestly, such an incredible site. So you can check out our other events that are coming up on our calendar. We do have more virtual tours coming up for Lindisfarne, for example. So they're at digventures.com/calendar. So if you want to see some more archaeology, it's definitely worth a look. If you're interested in becoming a subscriber, you can go to digventures.com/subscribe. So we have several different plans, and all of them have unique benefits, including priority access to events or priority access to bookings for digs, access to our courses, all these different things. So if you really love archaeology and you want to get even more involved, that's definitely where you should go. You can follow us on social media. We'll be sharing everything to do with Cherish and Lindisfarne and everything like that on our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can see all our handles down there. And of course, don't forget to check out the Cherish Project website. I've popped that on there for you all, so you can go and see more about what else they're getting up to and what they're doing when we're not there and anything like that. I dropped that link in the chat as well, so you should be able to see that. And for you guys who are watching the recording back, I'll make sure that that's highlighted for you as well. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for all your kind words in the chat.
Yeah.
And honestly, Kim, I hope you have a fantastic day and get your swimming done, because you deserve it. All of you, you've been working so hard.
Amazing, it's been amazing. So no, it's my pleasure to share it. It's a brilliant site and it's very rare. So
Really is, yeah. And maybe with some of you in the chat, we'll see you next year on site doing a bit of digging, maybe.
Please, everything crossed for next year.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. With that, that's everything from us. So I'll say goodbye from Lindisfarne and goodbye to Kim from Wales. So
Well, now from Caerfai.
yeah, and we'll see you all soon, I'm sure. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, bye.